Truth Project. For those of you just joining us, I'm Charlie Sennett. I'm the founder of the Ground Truth Project. And the Ground Truth Project is really excited about a new initiative we have that is called Report for the World. And we are right now in India, Nigeria, and soon to be in Brazil. And we are expanding this program. And it really grows out of almost a decade of international work that we've done at the Ground Truth Project. But I think even more importantly, maybe it grows out of an inspiration from our Report for America program, where we've seen the importance of service in journalism. And we've really seen what you can do when you think of creating an opportunity for journalists to serve their local communities and to work with host newsrooms, as we call them, that have really shaped an interesting area that needs to be covered, an undercovered area of their community, that we can help them to kind of come in and really provide support for them to have reporters on the ground. Our panelists and Karen will explain the program in some detail as we go throughout, and you're going to hear about their work. But I thought it was important for you to know that that is the mission of the Ground Truth Project. We are trying to be in undercovered corners of the world and to be there in service, to serve those communities. And so it is a really exciting time of growth for us. It's a really exciting time where we feel like we've hit our stride on coming together with two programs, global and local. So the title of today's talk is very meaningful to us: local journalism and global impact. You're going to hear from these correspondents will be sharing the work they do. And what really strikes me as we were talking just before we joined is that the issues are so connected thematically between those reporters with Report for America covering undercovered corners of America and these reporters covering undercovered corners of their part of the world. We're talking about water rights. We're talking about criminal justice. We're talking about the stories that really matter to these communities, and they are the same stories that really matter to the undercovered corners of America. So there's so much to learn from each other. I think this is a great forum to come through with our mission and our vision that is global and local. Moderating the conversation today will be Karen Toulon, who is a dear friend. We are old friends. We go way back. I think longer than we can remember. We have been on the board of the Overseas Press Club Foundation. We were both reporters in New York. Karen's title now is the, let me get this right, Chief Equality Correspondent for Bloomberg. Before that, Karen was the bureau chief in New York for Bloomberg. She is also the host of Black in Focus. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Karen. And thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for being on our board. Thank you for being someone who supports us in every way. Karen, take it away. Thank you. You're muted, Karen. I think you need to unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
The wonders of technology. I was saying that my involvement in Ground Truth, Report for America, and Report for the World is frankly quite natural. My parents emigrated to America in the 1960s, having left the Caribbean and then living in England for about 10 years. And with my parents and with my family, we learned about America, a new home country, and the local communities that we lived in through local newspapers and local television. That's how we figured out what was really going on in America, through local news. And I guess perhaps it's not surprising that I became a journalist. Fast forward to today, as you were talking about, local reporting is more vital than ever. It connects us to our neighbors down the road, to our neighbors around the globe. It is so essential to everything that we do. It helps us understand the link between climate change and empty store shelves. And it gives in local communities people the information they need to have more agency over their lives, and whether they're opening a business, educating their children, thinking about their economic or financial well-being, or simply enjoying arts and sport. That local connection is so very important. And so we have three colleagues with us today. We're going to share their insights about the work that they're doing, the work that they'd like to do more of, and also we'll take your questions. So first, I want to introduce Simon Kolawole. He's the founder and CEO of TheCable, Nigeria's independent online newspaper. And he joins us from Nigeria, where it's in the afternoon. Carol Monteiro is the co-founder of Brazil's Marco Zero. And Aarefa Johari is a Report for the World core member at Scroll in India. And so, Simon, I want to start off with you. You began your career with a major news organization and then went on to start TheCable. What did you not see in your local news ecosystem that you felt you could fill that need? Why start TheCable?
Sorry, technology.
We can hear you
thank
now.
you very much for that question. It's a question I've been asked a lot of times because in Nigeria, it's very unusual to move from the mainstream to something that was supposed to be the fringe, although the online media is becoming mainstream in Nigeria now. Now, I believe that there was a way we could contribute to national discourse and national development in a way that the traditional newspapers were not doing it. They were focusing so much on the big politicians, the big government, and the local communities were not being reported. Issues that affect day-to-day lives were not being dealt with. I mean, issues about criminal justice, issues about gender rights, climate change, and all that. They were not in the mainstream of discussion. So we felt, look, we can contribute to the national discourse with our newspaper, the kind of investigative reporting we do. And we also have this, what we call solutions journalism. If something is working in the local community, we also report. You know, if we have reported something, highlighted something, and the government has done something about it, we also celebrate it as a way of encouraging more remedial action on the side of the government.
So, Carol, you started Marco Zero with 7 other colleagues. The same question to you. What are you hoping to achieve? What difference are you making by doing local reporting that perhaps is just being missed at the national level?
Hello, everyone. First of all, it is a big pleasure to be here with you today. I thank a lot for the opportunity to participate in this event and to talk about Marco Zero to such an important audience. And it's a big pleasure to be here with colleagues from India and Nigeria as well. And I think that my story is similar to Simon. We founded Marco Zero in 2015, and we are 7 journalists from Recife. Recife is the capital of the state of Pernambuco in the northeast of the country. Is the poorest region in Brazil. And we also realize that we are not doing enough in traditional hegemonic media. In Brazil, we have a very concentration. The media outlets is basically owned by 7 families in Brazil, and we have a very big concentration. And we felt that the local stories and the stories that matter was not being told. So we came together to found Marco Zero. And today we have an organization that is financially sustainable in spite of the difficulties. But we have a newsroom with 10 people, and we produce independent and investigative multi-platform journalism. And the idea is to qualify the public debate on teams and also groups that are underrepresented in the traditional media coverage. So as I said, the Northeast is the poorest region in the country. And I think that we face more severely the consequences of the political, economical, and now the health crisis that the country is facing. And we think that Brazil needs more than ever journalism and journalists that are capable of defending our democracy, our freedom of expression, and also the physical and mental integrity of its professional committed to the truth, because I think that you all know that we have a very complicated political situation in Brazil, and journalism and journalists are under attack.
Aarefa, I want to pick up on what Carol was talking about with you. India has more than 1 billion people. It theoretically would be, it's certainly going to be difficult to try to cover everything, but stories can certainly be overlooked. People can be overlooked. Regions can be overlooked. In the work that you do at Scroll, covering gender, human rights, social issues, social justice, is it not just, are you providing a function that isn't just about providing factual information, but is it also about that service element that I think Carol and Simon both touched on? How much of your role is actually service?
Thanks for the question, and absolutely. In India, we have had very strong media over the years. In our 75 years of independence, we've had powerful media, but in recent years, a lot of our mainstream media is very evidently compromised. Where especially television media, there's very few mainstream television media channels out there that are doing independent, real journalism today. And similarly with plenty of the mainstream newspapers. So it's really in the online space that, the publication that I work for, Scroll.in, it was one of the first digital publications that came out at a time when digital media was not very big in India, and now it has definitely grown. But it's really independent digital news publications that are doing a lot of this really important service kind of journalism that we really need in this moment, and the need for that increases every single day in India. Just the way things are currently being run, the administration is quite increasingly authoritarian. And at a time like this, I think the work that my colleagues at Scroll and as well as at some of the other digital publications are doing is extremely relevant, because we're really trying to remind the public about key issues that should not that not only matter, but kind of trying to report on it with objectivity and integrity and a lot of thoroughness, which you do not see. Even if the same issues are being issues, events, topics are being covered in the mainstream media, the view is always partisan or towing the line, the government's line. So we really need to be the voice of the people who are not being heard.
I want to pick up on a word that you used, integrity. Simon, you've spoken about the social mob, about these other actors and other voices who can kind of crowd in when there's a vacuum of information. Can you talk about how you're disrupting the ecosystem, news ecosystem in Nigeria? What are the types of stories that you're doing now that are really benefit from the objectivity and the work that your staff does?
Yeah, well, that's one thing we are dealing with in Nigeria now, which I think is a global problem. It's called fake news. A lot of these things are circulated on social media, WhatsApp, Facebook in particular. Now, what we have tried to do over time is to scale up fact checking. Because we have one of the ways when someone sends me a link that I have doubts about, the first thing I do is to Google. And I realize that there are a lot of websites that have fact checked that particular piece of information. Now, we didn't have much of that in Nigeria before now. Only 1 or 2 newspapers were actually doing fact checking. So, and a lot of fake news is being rolled out of the factory every day. As I've woken up today now, it's about 8 hours ago, I've received maybe 2 or 3 fake stories that have been circulated. So now what we do is we now take them regularly. Before we were doing it once in a while, but almost on a daily basis now we are checking claims so that people can also Google and see the link. So that is one thing I think we are bringing and doing quite with a lot of devotion as we try to tackle this culture of fake news, because it's causing a lot of problems. It's creating friction in the society, a lot of lies being circulated. I mean, information that is absolutely false. So gradually we are seeing people now relying on us to cross-check that, please, in fact, people send us email, Cable, is this thing true? Please help us fact check. So we're not getting reader-generated ideas on how to fact check.
Carol, I want to touch with you on the whole notion that local is global and global is local. I understand you've been doing some reporting about water, about a river that's been diverted, people who've been displaced and their access to safe and clean water, which echoes a Report for America report that was done about water in coal country here in the United States. And it just is remarkable how similar these stories are and how similar these issues are and how they affect real people on the ground. Carol, can you talk about the water reporting that you've been doing?
Yes, Carol, thank you. We are very proud about this particular story because today we are among the 3 finalists in the text category of the International Award granted by the Gabriel Garcia Marquez Foundation. Among more than 1,500 stories, we are in the top 3. And the special report is called Waiting for the Water. I don't know if we can put the link in the,
we have
in the
the
chat.
link.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's we told the stories of people who were removed from their homes for a major project to transpose, to change the course of the San Francisco River. Is the largest river in the Northeast region. And this project has lasted 20 years, but 10 years ago, 800 families in the region were removed to build the canals for the new course of the river. And they were taken to agrovillas with the promise that they will have clean and safe water. But the promise is not fulfilled, and they are still waiting for the water for 10 years. And it's a very, very powerful story. And the results of the award we are expecting for tomorrow. But the award is not the most important. The most important is to tell the people about the lives, about how these people are living without water and how they are trying to find solutions that are not to depend on government, federal or local government, but they are coming together to search for a solution to have water in their homes. So it's a very beautiful, powerful, and important story. And as we are talking today, it is a local, but also a global problem, of course.
Carol, congratulations to you and your team for that. Aarefa, you similarly do reporting about parts of India that are undercovered and communities that are undercovered. And I hope you can give us an example, but I hope you can also talk a little bit about what would happen if you didn't exist. You're one of our core members in India. What if you just simply didn't exist? What would happen to reporting, that part of reporting that you're doing?
Me personally, or you mean my entire organization and
well, for certainly, certainly it would hurt you personally, greatly. But just your organization, what would it mean if there was just one fewer person out there doing this type of reporting? And if you could talk a little bit about the type of reporting that you do.
No, for sure. My organization, Scroll.in, we take the role that we do very seriously, which is to really highlight topics that we feel are underreported or not reported with with honesty and objectivity. And as Simon mentioned, there's we also have a huge problem of fake news in India,
Mhm.
circulated on social media. So at a time like this, uh, a lot of times in the mainstream media, you see social media trends and controversies dictating what makes the headlines. And for us, it's important to redirect the focus on things that are not really hyped up but are really important. So, for instance, uh, at a broader level, my entire team at Scroll and all of my colleagues, we're not a very large team. We are a small organization, very small newsroom. So we know we don't have the capacity to, report on the daily news, but we try to, focus on a few specific um, issues that are not being reported elsewhere. For instance, this entire drive um, in uh, in the country, which began in the northeast part of the region, to generate a national register of citizens, which would it's called the NRC, and it's become really controversial because it's um, uh, essentially the government's efforts to make a list of the citizens who they believe are legitimate citizens, and would then be a tool to delegitimize people from minority communities, and question their very existence as Indian citizens. And so that really was not being reported on a large scale at all in most of Indian media. And we really took that on and uh, covered it extensively to make sure that there is, there's a record of what is going on, and we're bringing to light the plight of the people who, who are being delegitimized or who stand to be delegitimized. Then, similarly, issues in the Northeast, in Kashmir, which, as some of you might know, is a contested territory, and years of conflict. And so again, that doesn't get reported in a very sensitive manner, and that's what we attempt to do. And specifically, our team here, we're 3 corps members, and we have a team, a report for the world team. And the project, the ground truth project that we have created, is, we call it the common ground. And we've done about 15, 16 weekly stories so far since we launched. And this, through Report for the World, we've really been able to do something that we couldn't do before at Scroll, which was in-depth, sort of long-form coverage of things that are not necessarily, the controversy of the week, or not there's not necessarily a current news peg, but these are stories that are always relevant. So, the topics that we focus on: land, environment, and sustainability, gender, work and labor, and health education. So these issues um, often get, they're reported on, but not necessarily with the kind of depth that we're being able to do. Now we're able to travel a lot more to, and spend time on reporting in underreported areas, and really break new ground with the kind of reports we do. So I don't know if we have time, but I could put a couple of links in the chat to some of the stories we've done.
Yeah, we certainly will take those. We have about 5 minutes left before we go to questions. And I want to kind of blue sky a little bit and talk with you, with the 3 of you, about what more do you want to do? What are the opportunities that you see out there in your newsrooms and in your communities to really have that impact, to really provide relevant information that other news organizations just may not have the time, resources, focus, for whatever reason, that work isn't being done. So Simon, I'll lead off with you. What do we need to understand about your community and the additional work that you want to do?
Sorry, the network failed a bit there. Can you come again?
I'm going to repeat my question. What is the
Yeah.
work that you'd like to do going forward? Are there areas of growth? Are there types of reports that you would like to add? Is it being able to just do more in-depth reporting? What do you see in the next year that you wish you could do more of?
Yeah, in the area of gender equality and social inclusion, I felt we were doing well, but by the time I did content analysis of international newspaper, international media, I discussed with my team and I told them, I think we are not doing enough. We need someone specifically or a desk specifically dealing with those issues because they are commonplace in Nigeria, gender equality and social inclusion. We thought that by reporting criminal justice, the underreported, that we were making progress, but we felt that is a more specialized area that we should pay attention to.
Okay, and Carol, what about you? What are you, when you look out into the year ahead, what are the areas that you feel, you know, if we had the resources, if we had the staff that you would like to beef up?
Karen, I think that we are also trying to think about journalism, not only as telling the stories, but also searching for solutions to certain problems and searching for innovation as well. This year in 2021, Marco Zero also leads a project that won the Google News Initiative Innovation Challenge. And our project is to creating accessible and quality journalism for blind and low-sighted people.
Oh.
Because we discovered that here in Brazil, we have disinformation campaigns addressed to these people in particular, because our journalism is not accessible to people with disabilities. So we are developing tools. It is a partnership with the university, because I'm also a journalism teacher. So I brought my university to this challenge to develop tools, also to diagnose sites on accessibility and to provide content to these people. But in terms of coverage, I think that we have a very small newsroom, and I think there are issues related to social and environmental violations that are not still properly covered. In recent years, we did some specific and important projects like the one about the water, but they are punctual. So I think that we can do more about these kind of issues, social and environment violations. And we also believe that the expansion of the team and the resources will allow us to have a more integrated coverage with other journalistic organizations in the Northeast. We are, as I said, in the poorest regions, and we want to strengthen the other organizations in the Northeast. We want to build this network. So I think that we can do more stories about common themes like social inequality and also the historical and cultural issues related to our region. I think that we want to build a strong network in the northeast of the country, not only to Marco Zero, but to other organizations that we can help and we can learn from them also.
I like that spirit of sharing across news organizations. Aarefa, where you sit in India and with your organization Scroll, what does the future look like? What do you hope to do more of in the months ahead?
Honestly, I mean, so currently the atmosphere in India for a lot of journalists is it can be a little unnerving, because a lot of journalists are increasingly getting arrested for simply doing their job if what they're reporting on is not something that the authorities are comfortable with. And just a few days ago, 2 young women journalists were arrested for reporting on attacks on minority communities in one part of the country. And the local authorities simply wanted to deny the fact that it happened. And so they went after the journalists. And so in this kind of atmosphere, I think all we want to do is continue to do our job as with even more rigor, and just be able to do even more in-depth reports, perhaps expand our team, be able to use a more have resources to use multimedia a little more, so that we can reach out to people to an even wider audience. Because I think what the kind of work we do is really important for more and more members of the public to know and understand in an increasingly polarized society.
Thank you for that. So we have a couple of questions. The first is about the COVID-19 pandemic and how that might be affecting your newsroom. Certainly more people are paying attention to news and information. On the other hand, personal finances have been affected. People may have less ability to pay for information. Simon, how's your newsroom been affected, if at all, by the pandemic?
The first thing it did to us was people had to work from home, and it affected team bonding, because we had this team spirit that because we're a young organization, it affected us in that way. I think Zoom is overrated, but well, that is a discussion for another day. Secondly, because of lockdowns in Nigeria, in certain places, we were unable to carry out some investigative reports that we would have loved to do. Because of restriction in movement. So it really affected us. Also, companies were affected by they had they were impacted economically. So those who normally advertise with us started cutting down on the advertising. So it affected our revenue. So in these three ways, we felt the impact of COVID.
Carol, what about for Marco Zero?
I think that in Brazil, in general, it was the biggest challenge of our careers, because not only because of the pandemic and the disease, but because of the government. We have a government in Brazil that are spreading disinformation daily, on a daily basis. And they tried to hide the numbers, and the newsrooms across the country had to come together to get the data from the states to have an idea of the numbers, because the government tried to hide and also spread lots of disinformation about vaccine, about the use of masks. So I think that we are not only dealing with something that it's new to everyone, but also we have a major player like the federal government playing against us. So we have journalists that were hostilize, and the president himself called names with journalists that ask about the disease. So I think that it is a very, very big challenge to face the disinformation, official disinformation in Brazil. So it is still a big challenge.
Okay, we have a couple of more questions coming in. I do want to try to get through them. First, if you could each speak just very, very briefly, just to answer the question, do you do the majority of your reporting, the stories that you present online? Are they in English? Are they in local language? Simon, if you can answer that first. And you are muted.
Currently, we do only English, but from next year, we're introducing 4 local languages in Nigeria.
Okay.
We'll be doing audio translation, and we also have website translating, specifically on a special fact check project that we want to start.
Excellent. Carol, what about you?
Just Portuguese. Only
First
in Portuguese. Yes.
Okay. And Aarefa?
Yeah, we do it only in English. We do have a sister publication that is in Hindi, which is the main language in North India. But it's not like all of our English stories are translated for the sister publication. So yeah, it does. Our reach then is to the English-speaking readers and not to everyone. and it's a mix. I mean, in response to Michael's question, obviously some people do feel that it's niche and it's, it's elite and niche, and then there's also people who feel that if their issues are actually written about in English, that means that some very local issues will get national attention from people. It's mixed.
And this question also, I think, perhaps to very quickly to Carol and Aarefa about building trust when you're talking to smaller communities, communities who really may speak a different language, have different cultures, different dialect. How do you build that trust with local communities? Very quickly, Carol.
I think just being there, listening to them, trying to understand their reality, and not only being there when there is a story of violation, poverty or suffering, but also trying to show their culture and their life as everyone, not only victims. I think that it's a good way to build trust.
And Aarefa, what about you, with especially doing the work that you do around gender and women issues? How do you build that trust?
I mean, I think it's something we all learn as journalists, to go in with empathy. I often, as an urban English-speaking person, when you go into a rural place where people don't have the same privileges, it's good to also acknowledge the difference, but then to approach people with empathy and an interest to learn about their lives, and really to listen more than anything. So I think it's something we just sort of learn over the years on the job.
And Simon, kind of what do you want, this question for you, what do you want the broader international community to understand about the issues that you're facing, what it's like running a news organization in your country? What do we need to understand better? Are there business models that you think are more effective than others when you're trying to get as much information out to a broad community?
Yeah, thank you. Very, very good question for me. It's something we've been battling with for the past 2-3 years. Ordinarily, we get the fundamental problem is finance. It's just the money. We do a lot of training. So in terms of capacity building, we are up to date. However, for the general operations, we've had to depend a lot on advertising, the private sector, and even from the public sector. But this comes with challenges. The bank gives you an advert, you run a negative story about them, they start blackmailing you, or with all the money we spend on advertising, you're running a negative story against us. So we've had to drop some advert, we've had to stand our ground. It's a major, major problem. We've enjoyed the support of MacArthur Foundation. They fund some of the investigative stories that we do. But in terms of operations, I mean, you need to pay salaries, you need to pay the bills. That is a big challenge for media organizations in Nigeria.
And Carol, are you experimenting with any business models or any other ways of, as Simon's talking about, doing the type of news that you want to do without being beholden, perhaps, to people who may not quite understand your mission?
Yeah, I think that the problems is very similar between my organization and Simon's. I think that international community is doing great work by financing and supporting. We have international funding, but we are constantly trying not to depend so much on this kind of finance. So we are investing in our membership program. We do not accept advertising from governments or companies because we want to remain independent. So we do not accept, but we are investing in membership. We are investing in having a relationship to people that read Marco Zero, that support Marco Zero, for us to have important part of our revenue coming from readers. So I think that's the biggest dream in our organization. But we tried lots of things. We try giving journalism courses, and we try even to sell T-shirts about journalism and about Marco Zero. We try all sorts of things to depend less on international funding, but it's still very, very, very important. But we are trying to make people understand, especially in Brazil, that journalists matter and that they have to pay for it. Even if we pay very, very little, we can pay $1 and or you can pay more if we can, but you have to support for us to exist and for other organizations too.
Okay, I think I'm going to start wrapping up here. For lightning round, does anyone have a final thought, something that we did not talk about that you think is important to highlight? If you feel we're good, then we don't have to. But Simon, do you have any final thought at all? I'll take that as a no. Aarefa, you're perhaps I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're one of you're the youngest person on the panel. What is the mood of younger journalists that you talk to? Is there optimism in the field? Is there pessimism? Has the pandemic been very, very disruptive? What's the mood? Again, realizing it's your personal point of view, but what's the mood of younger journalists?
It's a mix, honestly. I mean, for among younger journalists, those who, I mean, there's a lot of passion and a lot of obviously idealism and a desire to bring about a change, which really drives the work of a lot of younger journalists. And I'm specifically only talking about journalists who do want to do good journalism, not the kind of, not a lot of the mainstream stuff that we see in India right now that's very compromised. And so, but then since, with the pandemic, you have to acknowledge that there's a lot of people who are burnt out, who've been working very hard and, much more than they did before. And along with the pandemic, we've seen, various major events and happening in the country that, communal riots happened, and there were major protests on just before the pandemic began. So people have been covering, things relentlessly. There was, in the middle of the pandemic, a huge farmers' protest in North India. So for people who, for young journalists who've been covering all of these things relentlessly, there's a lot of burnout, there's a lot of stress and trauma that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And so in the face of that, to pick up on that, Carol, I'm sure you're facing the same, a lot of work, a lot of stress, the fear of burnout. What gives you hope?
Young journalists like Aarefa. I'm also a teacher, so I'm trying to learn from them and to have this hope and believe in the future. And also the recognition of Marco Zero's work, not only mine, but the whole team. I think that it's a very good answer to our stress and everything. So I'd like to thank Ground Truth and Reporter for the World program to coming to Brazil and choosing Marco Zero, and we're very, very anxious to work with them. And I think that would be a very, very good experience. I think that this kind of recognition, the youth and this hope, and I don't know, hope.
And Simon, you're going to be my last word here. What gives you hope? Do you have hope? And if you do have hope, what fuels it?
Yeah, I have hope. I'm an incurable optimist, as they call me. Why do I have hope? I have interacted with people at different levels, with the young generation, with the older generation. And I see that everyone, especially in this part of the world, I'm talking about Nigeria specifically, people love their country. They're disappointed with the system. They're disappointed with the government. but they love their country. There was a time I thought they hated their country, but there was a day a Kenyan wrote something negative about Nigeria on Twitter. And the way these same guys went after the Kenyan guys, okay, truly they love Nigeria. It's disappointed love. So that gives me the hope that, and the younger generation, they are technology savvy. We are producing lots of them who are doing great things. I'm very happy. And now there are Nigerians all over the world doing good in all over the countries. I believe that one day they will come back and be part of the change that we have been hoping to have in the system.
Well, that's going to be the final word. And
Karen,
that is,
Karen,
yes.
if you allow me, we have
Mhm.
here in Brazil, in Pernambuco, my state, we have a teacher that transformed hope in a verb. I don't know if it will make sense in English, but in Portuguese, hope is esperança, and he translated to esperançar as a verb, because a verb brings action. So I think that it's a beautiful way of thinking about hope, turning into a verb and also into action.
I love that. Well, that comment on hope is going to be our final word. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. I know Charlie has a few notes that he'd like to make, but I just personally would like to thank our panelists, Aarefa, Carol, and Simon, our supporters and the attendees. And, you know, on a personal note, there's a reason, corporate support aside, there's a reason that I personally support Ground Truth, Report for America, Report for the World. And it's simply because of the great work that's being done around the world that speaks to the local experience, that speaks to the human experience that we can all connect to. And so, you know, when we think about what's next, you know, I think that what's next for all of us is to think about how we can give our time and our talent and our supports as individuals and as philanthropies to keep this journey going, because it is a very important journey. Clearly, you can see there's no shortage of passion around the world for the types of work that we're doing. So with that, thank you so much for spending time with the four of us today, and over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Karen. Really, what an amazing conversation. What a chance to see the work that our host newsrooms are doing. It's incredibly important, and I come away with this sense of how interconnected we are in the stories we're covering. The issues are the same, and in the crisis we face, and the really difficult time it is for local news organizations to be there in these undercovered corners. And thank you for the service you do every day to be there on the ground. I think what binds Report for the World and Report for America, Ground Truth's two programs, is this idea of being there on the ground. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for your work. And thanks also to all of you who joined us, and especially our supporters, including you, Karen. Thank you for being such a great board member, such a great supporter. But a special thanks to Google News Initiative, which has really helped us to be able to expand the program. Thank you to the MacArthur Foundation, to the Luce Foundation, to Spring Point. These foundations joined us today in this conversation, and it really drives home what we are trying to accomplish, which is to recognize that the crisis in local news is truly a global crisis, and we're going to have to think about global solutions for it. Thank you.